Okay, guys, we'll go ahead and get started. We'll welcome our live streaming audience as well. Thank you guys for being here. Thank all of you for being in the classroom today. And you can see we had some tables set up. And remember, we'll start off with an announcement. Remember Tuesday night, our harvest dinner here at the church. Somebody help me with the time. 6 o'clock, and bring desserts. Okay, thank you for that. We look forward to that. It's been a long time, hasn't it? Been way too long for us to have a fellowship together, and we'll meet right here in this room. Messing with somebody earlier this morning, and they were talking about is it this room is our room or the fellowship hall? Well, we don't have a room. Miss Ann reminded me we're the nomad class, and this is our 9th location, believe it or not. But yeah. Other announcements. First of all, I want to wish my daughter, who is home with a sick child this morning, or a recovering child. I think Cantley's getting better. Wish Lindsay a happy birthday. She made me feel really old this morning. Dennis, I got a child that's 38. That's exactly why I said it. Happy birthday, Lindsay. No, I understand. Another announcement, fun announcement that we have some people who are going to celebrate their 69th wedding anniversary tomorrow. The Shacklins. I wonder who that would be. We're so proud of you guys. We love you very much. You guys are a huge testimony to us in so many different ways. And I told them earlier they were squabbling about whether or not Brother Neil was going to sit by or not. And I asked them to stay together one more day for their anniversary. But we love you guys very much. Glad to have you guys today. The other announcements that we have, I want to make sure everybody remembers our DHS Christmas drive. There's a list here. Bring gifts for Christmas for these adults who some are still children, and some with a lot of them with special needs. It's a very, very good project. I told the Wednesday night class that I remember going with Becky to see Diane, her sister, and she was the simplest thing was always just astronomical to them. And there's some things on on this list that are definitely not very expensive, but to them it will mean a world. I promise you. I've seen it firsthand. Remember that. If you got any, and also you can do financial gifts too. Give those to Kendall and maybe a couple others that she's assigned. But Miss Linda Cantrell Wednesday night asked us to put a friend of hers on our prayer request list in our Wednesday night class, and she specifically said bring it to our Sunday school class. Miss Chapman is a friend of hers who's been diagnosed with stage 1 cancer and lung cancer, and it's very rare that they found it as early as they did. So praying for good things to happen there since they detected it early. Isn't that something that your pastor's wife knows what a praying class you are? Praise the Lord for that. And obviously we want to continue to lift up the Ann Scott family. The days ahead are still going to be rough. We know that. Remember them, LeJan and Rob, and their kids as well. Miss Judy Smothers is going to have her procedure for her back tomorrow. So keep her in your prayers. I'll be checking on her tomorrow sometime. Charles Campbell said Wednesday night that his son Dennis is in the hospital in Conway, I think. Is that right, Dennis? With COVID. So remember Dennis Campbell. Dennis has a co-worker that is in desperate need of our prayers. And we won't go into a lot of detail other than I will say that, sometimes our prayer requests are not physical. Does that make sense? Sometimes our prayer requests are for spiritual help, emotional help. And this man and his family desperately needs our prayers. And we know that we serve such a mighty God that He knows what this family needs. And but lift it up. Just lift up Dennis's co-worker, please. How about others that you may have Okay.
On top of grieving.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Sandra Bowles. Sandra Bowles.
Yeah, and there was a child that I had in my class at Sherwood, named Aaron. They've been in the hospital.
Okay. Okay. Remember this. Dennis, did you?
Family also.
Yeah. Yeah. Dennis, would you expound on that, please?
Well, I can't really say a whole lot except the fact that this morning in our church service we had down there, I heard that Jay Jones had passed away. Jay was one of the most city boys that grew up with us at the ballpark. Good guy. He liked him. You know, I hadn't seen him in a long time, but I had no idea that he was.
Right. This is Carthel and Pat Jones' son, Jay. So remember this family too, okay? Were you on your way to take care of that heat?
I was fixing. Would you like me to do it?
I would. I appreciate it.
Like turn it up?
I will shut it.
No.
Oh my God.
Are y'all cold?
Freeze to death in here.
Okay, well, I'll sweat through it.
No, you're fine. There's no Roy out there.
I can't. I got my mic all hooked up now. I can't.
Bring my blanket, my personal heater.
Corduroy. Man, I know I'm from Meadow Park, but this ain't corduroy. I've had several comments on this jacket this morning, and I do want to say this jacket was Brother Raines' jacket, and he asked Ann to make sure if I could wear it, so I wear it with honor this morning. I really do. It's a special, special thing. But how about other prayer requests?
Hi, praise Randy. This week I got a text from the Furmans that we bought puppets from.
Yeah.
And they were asking, were we using them, and just questions about the puppet ministry. And I told them that it's still yet small, but we are using the new stuff, and it's a blessing. And they said they would continue to pray for our ministry.
Good, thank you. I'm glad you told us about that. And it's awful great. It's just wonderful that they checked up on it. Yeah, that's great. Good heart for God right there. Anything else? Brock, before I go any further, this is Lisa. And next time you come to the parking lot and Lisa wants to get in your car, lock all your doors. I hadn't forgot that, Lisa. Lisa pulled a Becky, tried to get in the car with Brock the other day, and his dog. Sorry, Lisa, I couldn't resist. You knew I had to bring it. It's been 2 weeks ago, but I hadn't forgot it.
And we didn't know.
Yeah. Now the whole world knows. It's good to laugh, isn't
Who
it?
was the most shocked, Brock or Lisa?
You'd have to ask those two about that. I think the dog may have got Lisa. It's good to laugh, isn't it? We have so many people who are hurting. We're not taking that light. We're taking it to the Lord. But it's good to have fellowship and laugh with one another. Yes, Rebecca.
About this little girl in Louisiana. She's in Children's Hospital in New Orleans. She's 12 years old. She has Hodgkin's disease.
Okay. Thank you, Rebecca.
Isabella Jackson.
Isabella Jackson. Okay. 12-year-old with Hodgkin's. Okay. Thank you. Anything else? Okay. We'll pray for that. Okay. Pray for your pastor. Brother Mike will be filling the pulpit this morning. I took him down there and made sure he knew where it was. And, I know he's probably I know he's ready to go, but I know he's probably, I won't say nervous.
Anxious.
Yeah, anxious. Good word. So I was trying to break the tension with him a little bit this morning as only I can. And I asked him if he brought his Bible. Showed him where the pulpit was. So he ought to be set. We'll hope so. He'll do a great job. We're glad to have him back. But y'all pray for him, support him this morning in our worship time. Okay? Anything else? Dennis, start us off, please, with a word of prayer, please.
Our loving Heavenly Father, we're so thankful that we can come to your house. Even more so that we can come to you and offer up these things, all these burdens on those that are sick and
Yes.
Just give me what it's your message to it. Forgive me why I failed you. I pray in Jesus' name.
Amen. Okay, I had to get out of that jacket because Angel's trying to kill me with the heat this morning. So, anyway, sorry for doing that during prayer. But turning your Bibles to the book of Exodus again. We're going to be in Exodus chapter 32, and we'll start with verse 1. Last week we talked about Moses still being up on Mount Sinai. He's been up there for 40 days and 40 nights. Communing with God. Boy, isn't that a wonderful thing to think about, communing with God? He's been communing with God this whole time. He's been receiving the Ten Commandments and all the other instructions that he's supposed to take back down to the people and share with them. And I mentioned last week there were 2 copies, and I saw some of you look at me like I'd lost my head. I hope you studied on that and looked that up. But there was a copy for the people, and there was a copy of it that was going to go in the ark for God. And all this time that he's been up there, these people, these children of Israel, have been down there waiting for this significant thing to take place and be over, and Moses is coming back. But you know, like most people, like us, they started to think they're number one. You ever stopped yourself and go, well, you know, it's really not about me? And it's not. Oh, my goodness. It's not about me. Now, that wasp is for me. I'm going to come over here. But yeah, they started thinking it's all about them. Number one. We have a real hang-up in our lives of thinking that we're number one and what we want we should get and what we want to do is just fine, even in the eyes of God sometimes. Morning, guys. So I got to thinking about that, and you know what hit me was a couple of days ago. You know, we have 2 vehicles at the house that are our personal vehicles. One is the old Ford Edge that Becky had, and it was supposed to be passed on to me, and she has the newer Yukon. And I noticed this last week, and I should have noticed it before, but when you open the door and you get ready to get in the driver's seat, there's some buttons on the side of that Yukon that have number 1 and number 2. That's your seat adjustment. Well, I knew I was going to be number 2 in the Yukon. So when I get in there, I have to push number 2, because I am a number 2 at our house most of the time, to get that seat adjusted for me. Well, I noticed that, you know, I was really kind of happy to get that old Edge, Ford Edge, and this is going to be my personal vehicle. Well, I noticed that every time I get in it, I got to punch number 2 in there too. I had it set for number 1, but somebody decided, Becky, that I wasn't number 1. So it doesn't matter which car I get in the mornings, it's not all about me, it's about who drove it last. And it was Becky. And I just thought that was a pretty good example of where we get with our own mind about who we think we are and how much power we think we have and how smart we think we are. We consider ourselves to be pretty smart people at times, don't we? We know better. We've got the answers. And I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to do it my way. We've got a God in heaven who will rein us in at times when we start thinking like that. And while Moses was on Mount Sinai for 40 days and 40 nights, the people of Israel started thinking they were number 1. They thought they knew what they needed to be doing. Look in verse 1 of chapter 32. And when the people saw that Moses delayed to come down out of the mount, the people gathered themselves together unto Aaron and said unto him, Up, make us gods, which shall go before us. For as for this Moses, the man that brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we wot not what is become of him. Look at all the failures in that first verse. It's just riddled with mistakes and failures because people think they are number 1. They saw that Moses delayed. He didn't come down as fast as they wanted him to, did they? They thought he's been up there way too long. He's had his chance. He's not coming back. Whatever they could think of, it's been too long. We're just sitting around here. We're just sitting around doing nothing. And they go to Aaron, Aaron is who? Moses' brother. And they go to Aaron and say, get up. Do something about this. And that's what we'll do right there, guys. When we get to the point where we think we're being put out, or when we think that we're being ignored, we're going to speak up. Eventually we're going to speak up, and we'll go to the most important person we can think of and talk to them about it. And sometimes that's not the right person. Aaron should know better. But Aaron is like us as well. Sometimes we get a little bit, our ego can get inflated when someone comes to us and asks us about doing something, or don't you think you could make this right for us? Well, our ego gets inflated. So Aaron is hearing what these people are saying in verse 1, and then they go even further with one of these comments. Listen to that. Make us gods which shall go before us. Excuse me? Do you not remember what has just happened and what you've witnessed that this God that is going before you has already done? Short memories, right? We all got them. We got short memories. And then they even started running Moses in the dirt. They brought it, and they said that shall go before us as this Moses. Okay, they put Moses in the dirt. Then they talk about their God and say the man that brought us up out of the land of Egypt. He brought us up out of the land of Egypt. What a statement. What a statement to say after all that God and all that Moses had done for them. Have we ever been there? There's been a lot of things I've said about, I kid about Becky a lot. I would be a whole lot lesser man without Becky. I kid about and I talk about her about getting in the wrong cars and driving through ballparks and things like that. And I poke fun, She's done a lot for me and continues to do a lot for me. She was up all night last night getting the house ready for Lindsay's party today. Cooking, getting things organized. You can't discount that. You can't discount that. And then it goes even further. Look at what God has done for me in my life. What about you? What about you? I know there's been troubles. I know there's been stumbling stones. And I know there's been problems. But in the big picture, what has God done for you? That you would say things like these people said. And we've said it. I mean, let's be honest. We've said those things, or at least, at the very least, we've thought those things. And they're talking about Moses and God who've done so much for them and they've forgotten. They've become number one. It gets worse. Verse 2. And Aaron said unto them, he's agreeing with them, guys. Aaron of all people. Of all people. He says, break off the golden earrings which are in the ears of your wives, of your sons and your daughters, and bring them unto me. Verse 3, and the people brake off the golden earrings which were in their ears, and brought them unto Aaron. And he received them at their hand, and fashioned it with a graving tool, after he had made it a molten calf. And they said and they said, these be our gods, O Israel, which brought thee out of the land of Egypt. Let's stop right there for just a second. Now we read these verses, we read this story, and we sit here today in our, let's just say it, in our righteous selves. And we think time and time again when we read these words from God's Word that says the things about going to Aaron and Aaron saying, okay, well, I'll tell you what we'll do. You're right. Why would Aaron say that? Why was Aaron in the position he was in Moses' brother, spokesman for Moses, who had been there with his brother through all these trials, out of Egypt and everything else, and he sees these people becoming number one to themselves, and they say, okay, you need to do this for us. And he agrees. Why do you think he agreed? Yeah, there was fear. Fear usually is what prompts us to make mistakes. Have you ever been really, truly scared? I don't mean like, Dennis Punk scared. I mean like really afraid. When we had our class down in the gym, the Sunday after the Friday that I lost my job, we had these petitions up in the back. What people didn't know that were sitting on the other side of those petitions waiting on our Sunday school to start, I was pacing back and forth. Could not get my breath out of fear of what I was going to do because I'd lost my job. And I felt that way for 2 or 3 days. And I had a pastor, his name's Mike Cantrell. And he said these words to me. Don't let Satan scare you. Don't be afraid, because when you become afraid, you're going to take things into your own hands and you're going to sin against God. Those words came out of his mouth. And that's exactly where Aaron finds himself. He's in this position. He knows Moses has been gone a long time too. He has seen and he can hear the people getting restless. He can hear things being said and actions taken and little groups over here talking. And he's beginning to be fearful himself. And he does what each and every one of us can and will do. He makes a huge mistake. And he says, okay, bring me the earrings. And these earrings and gold, these were plundered from Egypt. He said, bring all that stuff to me and we'll get something together, okay? We'll take care of this. He got the focus off him and off Moses and off God, and he put it into something else, something for these people to look forward to. Right or wrong, that's what he did. They brought all these. Said in verse 4 that he received them in their hand. That is the first real physical act of Aaron being in the wrong. He told them to bring it, and then he took it. When he took it in his hands, that is a sign that he's going to do something with it. Now remember, Moses is still up on the mountain right now. Moses doesn't know any of this is going on, but he's communing with a God as this is going on. And we'll find out in a few more verses here. They gave it to Aaron, and the conversation was, well, Aaron, you worked in the temple. You know how to take these items and do something with them. Verse 5. And when Aaron saw it, I skipped something there. They told him he received them in their hand and fashioned it with a graving tool after he had made it a molten calf, which the molten calf was one of the idols that had been worshipped in Egypt. Very familiar to these people. And I thought it was funny that they made it out of gold. They made it out of gold because it was that idol was going to be valuable to them. Very valuable to them. And then they made it a calf. And guess what the calf can't do? The calf can't talk back to them. You see, we got a God who will talk back to us. They wanted a God that just sat there and looked pretty. They didn't care what it represented. They just wanted something pretty, valuable, tangible, in their presence right now, that they could always look to. Let me ask you a question. None of us has ever really physically seen God, have we? We've seen things that God has done and said, that's God. We've never really seen God in person. If we saw God in person, just like these people, we couldn't handle it and we probably wouldn't survive it. These people wanted that calf, just something. And I believe that Aaron probably did the calf because he knew how to do it and knew what it's supposed to look like. But he could have made anything. I really believe that he could have fashioned anything to put in front of these people because that's all they wanted is something in front of them. Just because you have never actually laid your eyes on God, don't forget that He's always there. Don't make that mistake. These people have made the mistake of thinking that God has deserted them. Moses has deserted them. So we have nothing left. We need something that we can see, touch, smell, and hear. We want something right here in front of us. I described the children of Israel just then, but I think I probably just described us. You know? I want to see God work just like the rest of you do, but I want to see God work right now. I want to see God perform another miracle that only He can, but I want Him to do it right now, and I want Him to do it this way. I want to see God increase this church, but I want to see Him do it right now. Today would be preferable. That's not how God wants to operate in us, is it? It's a proven fact. It's in His Word. And we've all lived it that same way. They wanted something tangible that they could hold, and not only could they hold it, but they could control it. If they didn't want to look upon that golden calf, guess what? They just removed their eyes from it. Or they hid it away. Or they moved it around the corner. We can't do that with God. He's everywhere. And He's always around us. And He's always with us. Verse 5, and when Aaron saw it, he built an altar before it. And Aaron made proclamation and said, tomorrow is the feast of the Lord. Aaron's trying to make this right in his own eyes. He saw what he had created, this golden molten calf. He saw it and he built an altar, in other words, to sacrifice to this idol. He's fulfilling the wishes of the people. He's getting the people off his back. I have to believe that deep down in his heart the whole time Aaron knew this was wrong. Otherwise he wouldn't have made that last statement, and that because he tried to include the Lord in this deal. Let's read that one more time. He built an altar before it and said, tomorrow is the feast to the Lord. He's trying to get the focus back on these people without keeping the focus on Him. If I tell them that this is a feast of the Lord, well, that makes it okay. Folks, that's not how it works. Now, you've probably been in a lot of Sunday school classes and sat through a lot of sermons where preachers or teachers or someone asks you, what is your golden calf? Right? I'm not going to go into that. I just want to put that out there because it's a very good statement. It's a very good question. What is your golden calf? Because if you think about what your golden calf is, you'll think about you doing some of the same things that Aaron did here with that golden calf. Oh, wow, well, I'd never build an altar to my golden calf, whatever it may be. Sometimes we do. Sometimes we do. And I wouldn't take that idol and try to transfer it into worship to the Lord. Sometimes we do. We'll make excuses. We'll make it right in our own mind and our own heart, guys, that our idol, whatever it may be, and what do we say idols are? Anything. And Brother Neil, you mean anything. And I've mentioned to you about your kids. They can become an idol too. Your homes, your job, your money, your family, your wife. What else? We can make an idol of this building. And we can say, this building is, we're here to worship God. No, we're not. We're here to worship this building. And we build an altar to these things, whether we do it physically or not, but in our mind and in our heart, we build an altar to these things, these idols. Whatever they may be, anything that could be. And we'll convince ourselves at times that, well, it's not really meant like that, God. We're just doing this because you gave this to us. God's not going to give you anything, a house, a boat, a family, or kids, for the act of you putting them in front of Him. But we'll try to make ourselves feel better by saying, well, God gave this to me. Why can't I worship it? He didn't give it to you to worship. He may have blessed you with it, and then again, He may have cursed you with it. You ever think about that? How many of y'all got new boats? None of you? You can make an idol out of a new boat. God can bless you with a new boat. And boat is just an example. Think about this as anything. Dennis, golf clubs. Dennis got a new golf cart. God and Tanya has blessed him with a new golf cart. Dennis can make an idol out of that golf cart and build an altar to it and go use it Monday through Saturday and use it as a ministering tool to speak to other people he's playing golf with about his God or his church or their salvation. But he can also use it and use the same excuse that he used Monday through Saturday on Sunday. Right? That's how we do it, folks. We justify what we're doing. We justify our worship to these idols because they become so near and dear to us. We just have to have them. We just have to have them. And when we get them, we'll flip it around and say, well, God gave it to me. He wouldn't have given it to me if He didn't expect for us to use it or love it. I promise you, He didn't give it to you to take His place. I promise you. And we'll see in just a few minutes what happens when you let that idol take His place. And they rose up early on the morrow and offered burnt offerings and brought peace offerings, and the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. This worship to the Lord that Aaron said they were going to do turned out to be a pagan ritual. They used what they remembered from pagan religions, the old life, to raise up, to eat, drink, and be merry, and play. Now, I don't see here that God says that we're not supposed to eat, we're not supposed to drink, and we're not supposed to have a good time, right? I don't see that here. But when we use that to worship Him, we use it wrong. He allows us to do those things. Hey, we'll have a fellowship Tuesday night. There'll be laughter. There'll be Thanksgiving. But the focus won't be on each other. The focus won't be on the food. The focus won't be on a speaker. The focus will be in thanksgiving to God. Amen. That's the proper order. All the rest of it can come along with it as long as the focus is right. Their focus is way off here, guys. But they're actually doing what Aaron told them to do. That's the sad part. Now then, I told you earlier that Moses didn't know what was going on, but our great and powerful God knew what was going on. And in verse 7, and the Lord said unto Moses, Get thee down, for thy people, which thou bringest out of the land of Egypt, have corrupted themselves. Next verse. If I can get there, excuse me. They have turned aside quickly out of the way which I commanded them. They have made them a molten calf, and have worshipped it, and have sacrificed thereunto, and said, These be thy gods, O Israel, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt. I want you to notice a very, very striking point here in the words from God to Moses. Go, get thee down. It's time for you to get back down there. There's problems. for thy people, which thou brought out of the land of Egypt. What does that tell you? Now all of a sudden they weren't God's people. They were Moses' people. And Moses brought them out. There's two things happening here. One, God is disowning them because of the way they're acting. Now this is before Jesus Christ, before we're sealed, okay? This is Old Testament times. God is disowning His people because of their actions and their attitudes and their false worship. You don't want to be ever in that position. Johnny has said it numerous times, and I still believe it to this day, that when God stops tempting you or allowing you to be tempted, when God stops causing trials in your life or allowing trials in your life, when God stops those things, He has disowned you. You are someone else's. These people belong to themselves now and to their idol that they're worshiping. And the other thing that's going on here is He's putting Moses on the spot. The leader of these people. Moses, these are the people that are your people. Moses, these are the people that you brought out of Egypt. What are you going to do with your people? What are you prepared to do with your people? Because you got a problem, Moses. Let's break that down into our everyday life. Heads of the household, men, talked about it numerous times and will continue to forever talk about it because it's this important. Your family, your people that you are leading are your responsibility.
Amen.
There it is. Moses is up there he's communing with God. He's doing what he's supposed to be doing. But has he instilled enough faith in these people, in God, as their spiritual leader, to make it stick? And God is telling him that these are your people now. You've got to deal with this. This is your responsibility, Moses. Men, he has said the same thing to us. It's our responsibility. When our family, I don't know if you've ever had this situation in your family before. If you haven't, you may. And maybe you've been blessed and you haven't. But when your family gets off track and you're supposed to be the spiritual leader of your household, God's coming for you first. And you may have done a great job. Don't misunderstand me here, guys. Moses had done a good job up until this point of leading these people. Sure, he's had some hiccups and he's tripped up, but he's done a good job. He's been pretty faithful to do these things. But his children have messed up. It's up to Moses to try to rein them back in. And we have done that in our own homes. When we've had our children in our homes or our wives get into a bad, sinful situation, it's up to us to go before them to God and try to get them reined back in. It's our responsibility, men. And I realize there are homes that there's no leadership with a man there. It falls to the woman. We've got some very wonderful, faithful women who fulfill that role. It's their responsibility in their home. That's because they are faithful and serious about it. Moses, you got to deal with this. Your people are messing up. And he described to Moses what they were doing and what sin they had committed. Moses, at this point, after just communing with God about how all these things that he has with him, that he's taken down the mountain, are things that God has just told him about how the people are to relate to each other and to relate to him. And he hears this news at the end of this communion. They're messing up. He had to be heartbroken, leaving that very meeting with God to go down and deal with that very same problem. And he's on his way down the mountain in verse 17. And when Joshua heard the noise of the people as they shouted, he said unto Moses, there is noise of war in the camp. Joshua had come at least probably halfway up the mount with Moses. Joshua was a good man. Joshua had either done one of two things. He had gone halfway up in support of Moses, to protect Moses. Whatever the case may be, he was where he needed to be. God had planned for him not to be in the camp. It was very important we notice here that Joshua was not in the camp when all this went down, because the test that God was giving them, Joshua would have tried to stop at this point in his life. He's coming down and he sees Moses coming down, and he tells Moses there's noise of war in the camp. It wasn't a battle going on with swords and shields, but you can better believe there was a war going on in the camp. The same war that we fight every day. All of us sitting in this room fight this same war every day. He was right in his statement. There was a war going on. He says in verse 18, and he said, it is not the voice of them that shout for mastery, neither is it the voice of them that cry for being overcome, but the noise of them that sing do I hear. He was confused. This great commotion that's going on down there sounds like a war, but the more that I listen, it sounds like people singing. And it came to pass as soon as he came nigh unto the camp that he saw the calf and the dancing, and Moses' anger waxed hot, and he cast the tablets out of his hands and brake them beneath the mount. And he took the calf which he had made and burnt it in a fire, and ground it into powder, and strawed it upon the water, and made the children of Israel drink it. It says Moses' anger waxed hot. So hot, so angry, that the very tablets that he had in his hand, which were written with the finger of God. Do you know how special these were? He was so angry that he threw them down and broke them. And then he takes the calf and he has it melted down into a powder, and he puts it in their water source, and he has them drink it. Any ideas? I got one if y'all go ahead.
It's just human waste at that point.
Exactly. If they drink this, it's going to go through their digestive system, and it's going to be nothing but waste. That's what your idol's worth. This is exactly what this idol that you worshipped and danced in front of and sacrificed to, that you had Aaron make for you, it's worth nothing. As Ryan said, it's just waste. A lesson for these people to understand just how unimportant this thing that they wanted, this object that they wanted, who can do nothing for them. You're going to drink it through, you're going to drink it down through your body, and it's going to go out. And we don't have to be specific here, but I think you know what I mean. It's going to be out. It's worthless. Worthless. And guys, those idols that we have, those golden calves that we have, you've heard the verse about moths and rust. That's what they are. They're worthless. They're worthless. Now you say, well, Randy, you said we couldn't make idols of our kids. Your kids are going to grow up, and they're going to be out of your control at some point in time, right? Right?
Amen.
They're going to take their own path when they leave your home. They're not waste, but there's nothing else you can do about it. All you can do is pray for them. All you can do is talk to God and say, God, direct them. But the rest of these golden calves that we have, these golf carts and boats and houses and things like that, they're all waste. Can't take it with you, right? I know some people who their home is their most important thing in their lives, and their home is beautiful and it's nice. But in the big picture, what's that home going to really do for your soul? Nothing. And 30 years later, if you got a 30-year note, which I hope you don't, when that house is paid for and you actually own it, the bank doesn't own it, you still don't own it. I got Ricky project after project after project at my house because it's deteriorating constantly. It's not worth anything. In the big picture of life, in the big picture of God, it's not worth anything. Now, I work to build it back up, but when I do, something else is breaking, something else is going down. You see, you always have to be taking care of it and working on it to make it livable, because it's just rust. It's just waste. And when you're gone, it's somebody else's problem. Just like this water with the gold mixed in it that went through these people's body. The anger of God was great. The anger of Moses was great. Moses had, at some point, instructs the Levites. Dennis and I were talking about this morning. And Moses, at some point, says, okay, the Levites, the priests among you, they're going to take swords, and they're going to go from family to whoever was involved in this nightmare. They're going to put them, y'all got to put them to death. Why do you think he had the Levites put them to death? They were supposed to be the ones that controlling this, and not only that, it was very difficult for them to do. And I'll end with this. George Washington, when he first had the first group of soldiers who ran away, tried to run away, he had those soldiers that were in league with them who didn't run away or that got caught go after them, bring them back to camp, and he had the very soldiers that ran away shoot each other in a firing squad to make a point. God's making a serious point with these Levites. It's tough for them to have to go deal with this themselves as their priests. These are things that God's instilling in these children's minds that they won't forget. Somehow they do, but they should never forget it. Think about what your idol, your golden calf may be. We put a lot of stock in what our money is and what our money can buy, what our money can do for us. But it's not just money, is it? There's a lot of things that we put in front of God, and sometimes they seem so innocent. It's not really that big a deal. I just decided to do this. But that first step that you make in putting something in front of God is your golden calf, no matter how simple it may seem to you. This was a major deal here for these people. I'm not discounting that. But we can do the same things with such subtle things in our lives. I've got a family member that doesn't live here in the state who, the video games, he lives for these things. He's on this thing constantly. And I'm sure they're very entertaining. I don't know. And I'm sure he likes it. I don't. But it takes control of one's life, and it's just a video game. And when it takes control of your life like that, then you start making concessions elsewhere in your life. Okay, well, family, you go on to church today. I'm going to finish up this game I've got going with these other people across the country. We're going to do this today. Set it up. I set it up to do this, to play this game on Sunday morning and not go to church. It's just one time. You got to think about what you just said. You put it in front of the worship of your God. Vacations are, don't get me wrong here. Everybody takes vacations. That's not what I'm talking about. But when you purposely put things of the world in front of your God, that's your golden calf. It's worthless. Everything that we think is worth something is worthless in the eyes of God if we put it in front of Him. Any comments?
Randy, we had an old guy at the club years ago, but I've never seen a freight truck in a vehicle. Can't think that's what.
That's right. That's right. Heard that before. Thank you, Stan. We act like we can't. We make it the most important thing in our life. But the lesson here is the leadership of Moses was challenged by Satan, by the people. The people thought they were number one. What we want is what we're going to do. They made their lives the golden calf, even before Aaron crafted the golden calf. And they set something up to look at. To say, and Aaron tried to spice it up a little bit by saying, well, we're going to give offerings to this calf, but it's for the Lord. No, it's not. No, it's not. They tried to satisfy their own minds by saying that. We'll talk ourselves into a lot of things if we don't rely on the Holy Spirit to help us in our decision making about what our golden calves may be. Okay? Anybody else?
If you read that whole story, God was ready to destroy them.
Mm-hmm.
And Moses actually don't.
What a leader. And at one time, I think Moses was probably convinced that they deserved to be. You know, when he threw the tablets down and his anger waxed hot, he was probably convinced that God did need to destroy him. But Moses went to God on behalf of those people, much like Jesus Christ goes to God on behalf of us when we have those